Picture this. It's the dead middle of a brutal San Diego heat wave, and suddenly, nothing. Your AC just stops blowing cold air. Panic immediately sets in, right? You're sweating, and you just know a technician is going to hand you a massive bill. The immediate question flashing in your mind is, do I fix this thing, or is it finally time to just replace the whole shebang? Well, welcome to this explainer. Today, we're tackling that exact dilemma to see if the famous $5,000 HVAC industry shortcut can actually save your wallet in 2026, or if relying on it is just a really costly mistake. Here's our roadmap for today's explainer. We'll start with the basic $5,000 rule, dive into why 2026 totally breaks the math, figure out when to break the rule, look at the specific San Diego climate factor, and finally wrap up with the ultimate decision framework. All right, let's jump right into Section 1, the basic $5,000 rule and the origin of this classic industry shortcut. So the rule itself is beautifully simple. It's basically a quick diagnostic formula. You just take your system's current age in years and you multiply it by the quoted repair cost in dollars. That's it. That final number gives you your decision score. It's really designed to give you a fast, emotionally detached financial baseline when you're standing there stressing over a broken system. Now, how do you actually interpret that score? Well, if your score is under $5,000, you should safely repair the unit. Let's say you've got a 6-year-old system and a $400 repair bill. Your score is $2,400. Easy. That's a clear repair. On the flip side, anything over $7,500 means it's time to replace. A 15-year-old system needing a $1,200 fix, that hits $18,000. No question, time for a new one. The tricky part, though, is that middle tier, between $5,000 and $7,500. That's your borderline zone where you have to look a little closer. But here's what's really interesting about all this. This heuristic actually emerged around 2015. And back then, it made perfect sense because a typical residential AC replacement cost exactly that, around $5,000. The math matched reality. But look at how things have shifted since then. In 2020, they stopped making R22 refrigerant. Then, in 2024, these massive local rebates hit the market. And now, here we are in 2026, and the economic landscape has changed so dramatically that relying only on a rule from 2015, yeah, that can be incredibly risky. Which brings us to Section 2, why 2026 breaks the math. We're talking higher costs, efficiency gaps, and massive rebates. So, 3 massive changes essentially broke this basic rule. First up, baseline replacement costs have absolutely surged past that old $5,000 mark. Second, modern systems are just so much more efficient. A new system saves you significantly more on your monthly cooling bills, often 25 to 30%. Honestly, over 5 years, those operating savings alone can practically pay for the upgrade. And third, unprecedented new local rebates have arrived that completely upend the out-of-pocket math. This really brings that first point to life. Just look at the shift in replacement costs. Back in 2015, the average was $5,000. The rule's literally built for that era. But jump to 2026, and a standard AC averages around $7,500, while heat pumps are sitting at about $12,500, and that is before any incentives. The ceiling has completely moved, making the old rule's threshold artificially low for today's market. But here is the absolute game changer for your wallet. This number right here, $3,000 to $8,000. Between the SDG&E Tech Clean California incentives and the federal 25C tax credits, you could literally slash your out-of-pocket heat pump replacement cost by $3,000 to $8,000. The old $5,000 rule completely ignores these massive rebates, so a repair that looks like a smart move on paper might actually be a terrible financial decision once you factor in how heavily subsidized brand new systems are right now. Moving into Section 3, when to break the rule. Sometimes you just have to ignore the score for the bigger picture. You really have to look at the specific tech in your home completely independent of the math. Take an old R22 system, for instance. They stopped making R22 refrigerant in 2020, meaning recharging these things is outrageously expensive. If you have an R22 system, you replace it, period. The economics of that obsolete refrigerant completely override the rule. On the flip side, if you have a modern post-2015 system that suffers a single fluke failure, like a $1,500 coil repair on a 7-year-old unit, the rule might spit out a crazy high score of over $10,000. Ignore it. The system has years of life left. Just go ahead and repair it. There are a few other big red flags where you should just toss the rule out the window. If you qualify for heavy rebates, replace. If your aging gas furnace is also on its last legs, replacing both at once with a unified heat pump saves you 15 to 25% on labor. What if your home has solar under NEM 3.0? Well, the math heavily favors using your own electricity to heat and cool your home with a heat pump rather than exporting it back to the grid for pennies. And finally, if you're stuck playing whack-a-mole with 2 or more major repairs over a 3-year window, well, that pattern of repeated failure is a much stronger signal than any single math score. Next up is Section 4, the San Diego climate factor. It's the battle of coastal salt versus inland heat. There's a stark contrast here that every San Diego local absolutely needs to understand. If you live on the coast, say within 5 miles of the ocean, that corrosive salt air literally dissolves your coils over time. Your system's lifespan is artificially capped at around 10 to 13 years, so a coastal coil failure often means it's time for an early replacement. But if you live inland, in spots like Escondido or El Cajon, you're running that AC hard for over 100 days a year. Sure, your system might last 14 to 18 years, but the extreme inland heat means the operating costs of an older, inefficient unit compound way faster. That inland math strongly pushes you toward a high-efficiency replacement, really just to stop the bleeding on your monthly electric bill. But hey, before you assume the absolute worst and panic, keep this fact in your back pocket. Average San Diego diagnostic fees run between $69 and $149, and most standard repair calls total completely under $700. It might just be a worn capacitor, so take a breath and don't assume you need a massive replacement until you get the official diagnostic. All right, let's bring it all together in Section 5, the ultimate decision framework, your step-by-step guidance for 2026. I want you to step through this framework in this exact order. Step 1, check for R22. If you have it, replace it immediately. Step 2, run the $5,000 math. Over $7,500, lean towards replacing. Under $3,000, lean towards repairing. Step 3, if you're in that borderline middle ground, weigh your specific indicators, like local rebates, your repair history, and your climate zone. Step 4, aggregate all those signals and make the call. And Step 5, if you're genuinely split and just can't decide, seek out multiple itemized quotes. And speaking of multiple quotes, I want to leave you with this absolutely crucial piece of advice from the source material. Whenever you are staring down a repair bill over $1,000, you should always get a second opinion. Spending $69 to $149 for a second diagnostic is an incredibly wise investment. It very often catches misdiagnoses or totally unnecessary replacement recommendations from, aggressive salespeople. So, the next time you find yourself sweating and staring at a broken thermostat, I want you to ask yourself a critical question. Is your system genuinely at the end of its life, trying to tell you something through repeated, expensive failures? Or is it simply time to sit down, do the math, and grab those massive 2026 rebates before they disappear? The power and the savings are entirely in your hands. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and hey, stay cool out there.